Well, good evening, everybody. It's good to have you back again to our midweek live stream. We may have some first-time visitors this week because we had a great crowd on Sunday tuning in. And if you're tuning in today, you picked a great day. We have an incredible panel. We'll get to them in just a minute. But we do this every single Wednesday ever since we've been on lockdown or on, what do we want to call this? Shut in.
Quarantine.
Shelter
in place.
That's probably the best
all
word.
All those good buzzwords.
Yes. Ever since that's been going on, we've been doing this, and honestly, we've had a great time doing it. We had a great crowd last week. Hopefully, we'll have a good crowd this week. We love seeing your comments, so feel free to comment, make suggestions. By the way, somebody made a suggestion last week that we have a certain pastor join our panel, and guess what? We heard you, and he's here tonight. So if you have suggestions, we are listening. We can't promise we'll do everything that's asked, but we'll do our best. And so, but anyway, if you were with us Sunday, there was a message on this idea that, Christianity really took off in that first century. It was almost like a contagion, like we're dealing with now. And there was that analogy made. And I'll tell you, even there's a new normal for us right now that's going to happen. When this is all said and done, there's going to be a new normal. And we kind of want to look at that spiritually, what that might mean too. But certainly for our new normal, I mean, we may not even shake hands anymore when this whole thing is done. I don't know if that'll go away completely. But tonight we're going to take it a little bit different route and see what the contagion of Christianity and how that might look as we spread that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pastor Patrick definitely drew some parallels between how, the contagious coronavirus spreads. Obviously, that's a negative thing, but really how contagious the word of Jesus and his story in Christianity was, even in the first century, and how we can still be contagious in our faith today. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're all contagious in some way. We're all spreading something, but what is that something? And when you spread something that, widespread, it creates a new normal. So we're going to talk about that with our panel here. Just if you don't know who we are, we have Pastor Shane. He's our worship pastor. I'm Ashton. I'm the student pastor here, but we also have Pastor Jeff, who's our associate pastor, and Pastor Cheryl, who is our community care and outreach pastor. Yeah.
That's us.
Sweet.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So just as a fun, since we're talking about infected and contagious, tell us about a time that you were infected by something maybe you didn't want to have that wasn't so positive like faith.
Gosh, I don't know how personal y'all want to get on that.
Well, depends on.
I had the chicken pox in kindergarten, so that was a pretty big deal. So.
Well, I can beat that. When I was 2 years old, I actually had a disease called encephalitis, which a lot of people don't know what that is. And of course, when I was 2, I didn't know what that was either. But encephalitis is where your brain swells, actually. Most people who get it, they end up dying because it crushes in on their brain. They end up paralyzed or mentally handicapped or something like that. But thank the Lord for me, when I was 2, my soft spot had not yet, become fully hard. And when my brain swelled, I now have a little bump on my head. So those of you online, if you ever want to come feel my head, that'll be okay.
I don't know. You think they'll rub off too much hair?
Moving on.
Now, how did you get that?
I actually got encephalitis. I got infected through a fly. These are my earliest memories. Like I said, I was 2, and I was swatting flies on the back porch on the screen, and I came in and told my mom that a fly had bit me, and she said, "Flies don't bite, go away." But later I got these severe headaches. They took me to the hospital. The boy that I was in the room with actually died from it. And this is like early 70s or something, so this is a long time ago. But it was very serious. I was in quarantine. My parents had to come in and put full gown and gloves and face mask and the whole thing. But what is interesting and kind of plays into what we're talking about today is that my mom told me that before I had this contagious disease of encephalitis, that I was very laid back kid and I was very chill, and that after I had it, that it changed who I was. After I was infected, it changed who I was, and I became more driven and high-strung and full of energy. So in the same way, we're talking about how our faith infects us and
Yeah.
how we become new people. I'm sure we'll talk some more about that.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a story to share? Share?
Just normal stuff like Cheryl. I had chicken pox. Get a cold about every year. Nothing too earth shattering.
You know what's the worst?
What's that?
The stomach bug.
That
That
is
one's
bad.
the
That is
worst.
bad.
I mean, I haven't had corona, so I can't speak into that.
You
However,
get a case of the uh-ohs and you're in the wrong place. Yeah, stomach bugs.
is that what you call it?
That's what
A
I
case-
call
a
it.
case
It's
of
like,
the
uh-oh, I gotta go right now.
Oh, that's the worst. Okay, but obviously, we're dealing with a new disease, a new contagion. Some might say than we've never ever dealt with before. However, this isn't the first time that the world has dealt with an epidemic or an outbreak. So looking at things in the past, how have Christians dealt with previous outbreaks? I mean, even looking at, the influenza outbreak 100 years ago, or all the way to the Black Plague
Black
and all
Plague,
sorts of
absolutely.
things. How have Christians typically responded to those sort of things?
Well, I know, the more you read on this stuff, especially since we're dealing with an epidemic right now or a pandemic, you read those stories and you hear how Christians a lot of times have run headfirst into it and been willing to sacrifice to help others. You hear, and you hear stories even now of just people that are really just good people. I don't know anything about their faith, but all the medical workers right now, we applaud you, and the firefighters and the police officers, people that are every single day putting themselves out there. That's greatly appreciated because they're helping serve us. So I hope through this that those people, if they don't have faith, they'll realize that there's a prompting in their spirit that's telling them, this would be good to do. This would be good to serve and to help. And so you hope. I might be jumping way ahead on that. Sorry
No,
if
it's
I am,
okay.
but yeah, that and everything I've read, that people have always, the heroes are the ones running headfirst into this stuff, and it takes a lot of bravery
Yeah.
to do it. For
And
sure.
that really goes back to who our founder of the faith is, and that's Jesus. If you look at his life, he went up and touched the leper. They were supposed to say, unclean, unclean, and stay back, not get near anybody. But Jesus walked up to him, looked at him, which no one would look at him. He was, a social outcast and ostracized. But Jesus walked up, looked, touched him, and healed him. And, certainly we need to be responsible. I'm not saying, go running up to everybody with corona. God gives us a brain as well as faith. But the point is that people of faith look beyond just what's going on and listen to the Spirit of God. And, we need to be willing to do that, sometimes in ways that seem strange or that we're not used to. We're always exploring new ways to connect with people. We've been doing that through this venue right here, doing it online when we can't be in people's presence. And there's a lot of other ways to do that, but just being creative and trying to connect with people and let them know that Jesus does love them and that we can rush in some way, even if it's virtually, to make a heart connection with them that ultimately, hopefully, will lead them to God.
That's good. I don't know about with the disease, but back whenever Haiti had the earthquake, we gathered up several people here, and I had family members that were thinking, "You're crazy for going to Haiti, a third world
Right.
country full of diseases." My doctor was really concerned about drinking the water there, and I remember when we were staying at the compound there at an orphanage, we had to drink the water. We were given one bottle, go refill that, and I can remember the thoughts going through my head of, I'm drinking the same water they're drinking. There's a lot of stuff in this water. But then it was like, for me as a Christian, I'm like, I would risk and rather be known for risking my life to be able to help someone else rather than watch them sit and, in the rumble and stuff like that they were. So, there's something that is within you that compels you to want to help. And, and I found that evident whenever I went to Haiti. So,
Yeah, definitely. So what about, in times of a contagious disease or even disaster, it also seems like faith is contagious. It's contagious anyways, but, you know, in times of desperation and times of fear, it seems like, you know, faith catches on so quickly, because people are desperate for the truth. They're desperate for comfort. They're desperate for community. So with us having a time of fear and discomfort right now, what do you think our faith being contagious looks like? How can we use our faith to be contagious?
I think that for me, I've just tried to concentrate on the people that I'm quarantined with, and that's my family. And we can all do that, because sometimes we forget that it starts right there. If you're married with your spouse, if you have kids, or your parents, whoever you are in the house with, you can make an impact on them. You know, you can do things that you've never done before. Maybe you haven't prayed together. You can do that while you're having family time, even just starting with dinner and just thanking God for providing, and that you're all healthy and that you're all able to be there together. I think we have a great opportunity to impact our families and to model. I know for me, I'm wanting to model in front of my kids that God's still in control, and that yes, there's something going on and we need to be socially responsible, but our faith, as we follow the guidelines that are given to us and be responsible, that our faith can still grow and that God's still in control, and we don't have to have that fear. And I think that's the thing. We're driven so much by fear in this time, you know, and you can read verses of God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and a sound mind, you know, things like that that can be encouraging and be great reminders for us.
Yeah, I think too, we use technology for things like this, for staying in touch with our friends from church. But it goes beyond that, I think, too, in a personal sense of picking up the phone, texting somebody, calling somebody.
Yeah.
I do that a lot, just random. One of my best friends used to play in a band with me. I think he sits and goes through his phone book and just texts everybody and does it. He's an awesome guy, and he does it. But honestly, because he's done that to me, I've in turn done that a lot more, just because I'm like, that's impacted me from him doing it. It's amazing what a positive text message will do from somebody that hadn't heard from you in a long time.
Yeah.
If you just text a random person that would never expect to hear from you, hey, I want you to know I was thinking about you today and praying for you.
Yeah.
That goes so far, and I think that grows faith from somebody that might have been struggling. And maybe you know someone that's struggling. Maybe you know someone that's scared. Maybe you know someone that's sitting in their homes alone, or maybe battling sickness themselves. I don't know, but just a simple little text message or a phone call, maybe if you're close enough to them, even, you know, FaceTime or Skype. There's so many ways that through technology, without even opening a Bible, I like how we've said it here a lot of times, the early disciples didn't have a Bible. They had their experience. They had what Jesus did for them. And so that's our experience. That's their experience. If somebody's in need, if somebody needs to be lifted up, it's up to us just to reach out to them and experience life with them. And that will preach to them more than picking up a Bible and smacking them in the face. I think you reach out and love on them first. And then if there's someone that's far from God or whatever, I think that's an invitation for them to then ask questions and then open up that door of conversation.
I think that's more impactful too. I mean,
Yeah.
I see a lot of posts on social media or things that are good and meant in a good way by Christians and trying to, you know, uplift God or have people not fear. But it can come across to someone who feels the other side of the subject, you know. It could come across as attacking them, like they're not taking this seriously, and yeah, I should have faith, but I do have faith, but I'm also protecting myself. If you just bypass all of that and say, hey, I love you, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying for you, that impacts them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Jesus did. He didn't answer the questions of the Pharisees sometimes. He just said something else and made the point of love that he wanted to make.
Right.
So yeah, that's a great one, Shane.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we can tell people, you know, you're not alone, you know, that's huge,
Yeah.
you know, that there is hope, that there is somebody that's just on the other end of a phone, or willing to maybe drive by your house and drop off groceries. Those are things that are just very impactful to people, and I've found that over and over through the course of these several weeks of people just wanting to reach out and just to show love, and it's just been amazing. So,
I wanted one more thing to this. I want to give a shout out to, we have great teachers and people involved in all areas of ministry within the Bridge Church. We really do. We have some great volunteers, and there's a couple here that's just great working behind the scenes. And I haven't got to know them too well, but one of them is Jace's teacher here at, is it Mineshaft? Mineshaft. Well, not Mineshaft, it's one of them, Upstreet. They have the one, that's the big one. Okay, but she's his teacher in there. And
Jace is your son.
Jace, I'm sorry, yes. Jace is my son. He is one of my sons. He is, they got on to me last week. I got their ages wrong. They both just turned 9 and 10. I said they were 8 and 9 last week. They got mad at me. But they're actually 9 and 10. Let me correct that on the record. Jace is 9. And great singer, great heart, great spirit and all that. But his teacher is so sweet. Miss Tina, thank you. If you're listening, I hope you are. She's dropped off some things at the mailbox, just a nice little thing for him. They stood at the road and said, we don't want to bother you, but we want to say, hey, we love you, and emailed him and stuff. I actually think they have a Zoom call tonight, sometime this week. I'm not sure when.
That's cool.
But anyway, just really sweet. So those little things like that, just so y'all know, anybody else that's doing that, reaching out to your students, reaching out to kids, people you're close to, just reaching out to them, even those that aren't necessarily far from God, but just they're stuck in our house, not doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
That's meaningful, and it's appreciated. And good job to Pastor Avery and all those teachers for taking care of those kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the most contagious thing about faith is the depth that you can sense in somebody, and especially in times like this, the depth of peace and of joy that you can really sense, or the love that you just feel from somebody who's genuinely reaching out, and they don't have an agenda to preach this to you or to share that with you, but really just genuinely care for you. I think that makes people go, why are you like that? What causes that, and how can I get some of that? So do you guys have stories that you might want to share about someone who infected you, someone you could, sense the depth in, or made you want to get infected with this Jesus virus, however you want to put it?
I know I've got lots, but you go ahead. I don't want to dominate the table here.
I do too. I mean, I feel the same way. I could go back to, like my camp counselor, who in 1 week's time just made such an impact on me, and not only solidified my relationship with Christ, but is instrumental in me being in ministry. I wanted to be like him. But I tell you, as we go through life as believers, as Christ followers, there are people who will challenge you as you go along, even when you feel like your faith is not so strong. I remember years ago, I was already a pastor, so, I had it all together. My life was perfect. All my faith was great, right?
Of course.
No.
Of course.
But this guy asked me to pray for him. And he was a friend of mine. It was just me and him. It wasn't in a service, there was no music in the background. And I just prayed for him like I'd prayed for tons of people. But I tell you what, this guy had faith, and when I was praying for him, I just felt God, and this is nothing me, because it's never happened to me before or since, but there was something about this guy's faith. And as I was praying for him, he was having trouble with his eyes. He couldn't see, and it was getting all blurry, and young guy. And he was like, Jeff, would you just pray for me? And I prayed for him, and as I was praying for him, I can't tell you what was different. I don't understand it. I don't know. But there was this calm assuredness, like God just said, he's going to be healed. And when we stopped praying and he opened his eyes, he flipped out. I mean, it was like the stories you would hear from the Bible, like, dude, I can see. And I'm like, I know. No, you don't understand my eyes. And I was just like, I know. And I'm like, I got no credit, but I just knew this was God. And because God used me for that. And I was seeing his faith. That was contagious. And I'm like, God, I want you to use me like that again. And, I wanted more of God. And it was just, it was incredible. I couldn't believe God used me for that. And almost telling the story, I almost feel like it draws attention to me, but I want you to understand that it wasn't that way at all. I felt so humbled by that. And so, I was so secure in knowing it had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But that God had used me that way, and it made me more hungry for God, and it made me want to pray for people, and to see God touch them, and just to be honored to be used in that way. It was incredible.
Yeah, I get to see things quite often in the position that I'm in here, where there's a need, and before there's ever a need, there's already provision. And so, somebody will say, well, sure, I just bought all of these blankets. I have no idea why I bought the whole end cap of blankets at Walmart, but here you go. And I'm like, well, thank you. And then the next person that comes in is like, if I just had some extra blankets, we're really cold at night, to keep our utility down and that sort of thing, if we just had some extra blankets. And I would just reach down there and pull them up and say, like this, would this work? And just to see that and the way that God provides for people is such a huge faith builder. And so when you see that activity of God day in and day out, it's like, wow. But yeah, I've had many people along the way that have just poured into me, that I've watched, that have just been really encouraging. And yeah, it's been huge as far as, what's so different, like what's different about them, and just kind of like diving into, their own testimony that they would share with me. And it's like, that's what God did for them. And it built my faith. So
That's good. Those are both great testimonies. I have so many through the years, whether it's when I'm a child or a teenager or now, people that have influenced me and that have really been contagious to me. Of course, my parents have always, sort of raised me up to know Christ. But probably the most figure in my mind is my granddad. We call him Pawpaw. His name was Jack Bowers. So anybody that knows me knows
24.
I have a son named Jack Bowers. He was named after him. His full name is Jack Michaels. He was named after him and my dad. And but he was just sort of a quiet servant. I mean, there was nobody that didn't love him. I mean, when he passed away, he was in his mid-70s, and I mean, there was just hundreds and hundreds of people came to see him, and he was just a old country guy. You wouldn't think that would happen at that, but it just shows how his legacy affected so many, not just me, but just the little things. I don't even recall him preaching very much and all that, but his prayers were always just so powerful. When it was time, I tell you, you talk about serving, that's when we look the most like Christ, is when we're serving. And those are the best memories I think I have for him. He was always out working in the yard. He was out when it was time for the family to come over and everybody, which happened every single week or whatever. He was always the first and the last one in the kitchen, cleaning up and doing all those things. He's just a servant spirit. And so I always tried to be like him. I mean, and so much so that I think we all wanted his legacy to continue with his name and stuff. So we tell Jack now, it's like that's a big name. You got a lot to live up to, So I mean, no pressure. No pressure,
no pressure, buddy.
I mean, I could keep on going. Even my in-laws, my father-in-law, I love sitting and just chatting with him about scripture and things like that, because he gets all crunk and fired up, and he talks about all the people he was witness to that week and stuff, and I'm like, I haven't witnessed to anybody, And I'm like, so it's like I want to be more like that. So I've just got a lot of people that have been very contagious to me in their faith, and so I've been blessed. I know everybody don't have that, so I've tried to remain open-minded and understanding and empathetic to people that don't have those things that I do. I think it's easy for us that's grown up in that and to have such great people that's influenced our lives to remember that's few and far between. I mean, everybody don't have that. So I consider myself blessed because of it.
If I could think of anyone in my life who their faith is just infectious. Like you see it all over them and it makes you go, oh man, I want that, is my friend
Caleb
Caitlin.
Gaines.
Oh,
That's what I was
that
gonna say.
too.
Oh, Caitlin too. Both
Yeah.
of them. They're both awesome.
Man, I'm blessed too. I got lots of friends
I
that
was
feel
gonna say,
that.
I thought that's who you were gonna say.
Yeah,
'cause
no,
when you were
but
describing it.
But both of them, I have several friends, but the one I was thinking about was, her name is Caitlin, and we went to college together, and she is just so
It's true.
passionate, like, and unashamedly so, about her faith and in talking about Jesus and specifically about youth ministry. I mean, she's one who, you know, as I was in college and felt like I was being called back here to be the youth pastor, you know, I didn't feel capable for that. And, you know, she just spoke such words of faith and love into me that not only made me want to answer that calling, but made me want to pursue Jesus more, like even in that moment. So she's a great one for me. But I have another one, Caleb, who is, you know, he's currently training to be a pastor in Australia, and even still to this day, you know, sends me messages and things and encourages me, and yeah, is just so unashamed about his faith, and it's just who he is, you know, that it's so incredible. Well, you know, whether we're talking about a contagious disease or contagious faith, whenever something spreads so rapidly and so quickly, it really creates this new normal, which is a phrase that Pastor Patrick put out there Sunday, which I think is so interesting, because as I've been scrolling down social media the last few days, I've seen a lot of posts about, you know, what are we gonna do when this is over? Are we just gonna go back to the life that we had before, or are we really gonna create a new normal that is better? And so I kind of want to just discuss, what do you guys think the new normal will be, first of all with Corona, but also, you know, what's the new normal when it comes to faith?
I'll kick it off. I know you, this is a good question, and it's a very deep question, and honestly, it's one for me I could talk about for a while, but I'm not gonna. I think the new normal after this. See, everybody knows, you know, everybody that knows me personally knows I love the prophetic part of the Bible and studying that. I think this Corona thing is pushing the trajectory of where we're going as a world, as a nation, as a whatever, further down that prophetic line. So I do think that, and that's a deeper conversation. One that I think, by the way, that a conversation we're going to have here at some point. We're not sure when, but a deeper conversation on that. But I definitely think it may change how we do church, for sure. That's not to say the doors of the church won't open back up. They will. We're looking forward to when that happens. But we realize that some of you are going to get really comfortable with this. And we'll have to consider those things as we move forward. That's why we're constantly saying we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you, because we do want to know what people are thinking. Yeah, I mean, we were just joking in here in the lobby just a little while ago about, and I said it first thing, I mean, are people going to go back to shaking hands, or are they not? You know, because I mean, I've always been, especially my wife, she's a bit of a germaphobe, and so, you know, if she shakes a hand, she's going to get the hand sanitizer out anyway to do it. So you can imagine now everybody's doing that. Now everybody's like, I'll just wave at you, you know. Is this going to make us paranoid? It may. But, you know, I think spiritually, I just hope it wakes us up. I hope it wakes us up to know that our days, we don't know when our days on this earth and on this side of heaven will end. And I pray for a spiritual opening of the eyes for the nation, for our country, and for the world, really. That people that are searching. I could go on, but I want to hear from you guys.
I hope that we just take the best of both, of what we did well before all of this happened, and the good things that were going on in our lives and our families and our, you know, friends and community, but also to take the things like we've been forced to have family time, but good things have happened through that.
Yeah.
You know, the things that we've learned, that we can kind of combine them when we're all able to go back out again, when all the toilet paper's back on the shelves at Walmart again, you know, when everything is back to normal that way, that we'll incorporate the things that we've learned and the things that have made us better people and given us better relationships and the things that we've learned with God. I know that there are some people, when something happens, you have a tendency to kind of maybe blame God or ask God why and draw away. And then there's another group that's like, oh God, I need you, and runs to him. And I hope that if you've run to him or your questioning has brought you to him again, that you continue to do those things. I know there are, again, technology, there are apps. There's a new app that Cheryl told me about that I do now that gives you guided prayers, and I've added that to my time of prayer and reading and all of that. And so there are things that we've learned that maybe wouldn't have come about except for being forced into this situation, that God wants to teach us. And, we just need to open our eyes. That's what I pray I do, because there's so many times where I feel like I've missed God. I'm pumping gas, somebody says something to me, and I'm like, okay, that's great, and I move on with life. And then later I think, man, why didn't I pray for them? There was an open door. I hear about other people who, they tell the story of, and I got a chance to pray with this person. I prayed with, the waitress at the restaurant, and, my wife did that. She did both of those, and I'm like, I'm a horrible pastor. I wouldn't even have thought of that. And she did, But I want to be more aware of God, the things he's teaching me, and, so I can incorporate that into my life. So I hope the new normal for all of us is to take what was good before all this hit and combine it with what we've learned that's good and create that new normal that way.
I think during this time, we've had a lot of time to be innovative and creative and taking steps that we typically wouldn't during, just regular seasons. So it's kind of forced us to really think outside the box on, how do you reach someone with the gospel when you can't actually have a face-to-face conversation with them, or you can't go to the hospital and visit them whenever they're dying, or those types of things. So it's causing us to be a little, creative and innovative and those types of things. And so I don't foresee us stopping. I think it's kind of created some space for people to be able to start wrestling out those creative ideas that they've had all along, those dreams that they've just never really tapped into. And, it's like we always have this thing of we're going to go to church, but I think now it's the time. We are the church.
Right.
Yeah.
We are the church, and we are to share the love of Christ. And so, I think that this is just going to really propel us into the future, and it's going to be different, but different sometimes is good, and sometimes it does take that waking up of those spiritual eyes and those things. So yeah.
Man, preach it, Cheryl. Okay,
Go,
I
girl.
can get along with that. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm interested to see the good things that come out of this. I really do hope that we come out of this better than before. And like you said, balancing what we did well before, but improving on things that, obviously were misplaced priorities. I really, just on a personal note, I really hope that we as a nation can learn to value maybe downtime instead of busyness so much. And even in the Christian world, to not just be so busy doing things all the time, whether it's with your kids or going to church or going to school or doing that thing or this thing or my job or my career, taking time to really value rest that God intended to be a part of our life anyways, and seeing the good that comes from that, seeing that it's not just wasting time, that it's so valuable for your family, for your own mental and spiritual and emotional health. That's one thing that I hope sticks around after Corona. But as we wrap up here, we have one more question. So as we hope to be contagious with our faith, and hopefully people are taking away practical nuggets of how to do that even in this time, how do we help and walk alongside somebody who catches that faith in Jesus to live a new normal? because I think it's very easy, like it would be for us after Corona, to go back just the way that things were. Even in your faith, that's very easy. When you start this new normal with Jesus, to just go back to old habits and old, patterns of life. So how can we, in practical ways, walk people through that new normal?
Phew, that's a good question.
I think it takes community and relationship.
Yeah.
Jesus just didn't come down and say, here's the stuff, do it. He walked for 3 years with 12 guys and really a lot more, and lived that life. And people who want that new life, we need each other. We need to encourage each other. We need iron sharpening iron, as the Bible puts it, where you're making each other better. We need accountability. We need someone to say, are you doing okay? And are you lying to me right now when you said everything's good? And, or even call us and go, man, I've been noticing your temper's short. Is there anything I can pray with you? But I think we need to do it together, and slowing down, as you said, and having more time with one another has made us more aware of those relationships. And anyone who's new in this, man, they need someone else. If you feel like you are stronger in the faith, find a few someones that you can pour into, that you can check up on, that you can send a text or a snap or just an email saying, are you okay? And I'm praying for you. Those things make a difference. But if you're needing someone, maybe you're strong in the faith, but you need an accountability partner. None of us really like that word. But someone that you can maybe just pray with, someone that can tell you about an app that can help you be better. I think we need each other, and we need to look for those people in our lives, both kind of ahead of us that are pouring in, and others that we can pour back to.
That's good. I want to build on that a little bit, Jeff, because I talk about everything with Colleen. She's my wife. We talk about these kind of things all the time. And on the relationship side, it's so important that we as people are positive people and encouraging people, and because it's hard to hang out with or to hold into account people that are just negative or are constantly saying negative things. The glass is always half empty. It's gloom and doom all the time, so I think relationships are huge. That's why I think with Jesus, of course, he did all the big teaching with the big crowds, but when it was time for deeper teaching and relationship building, he had the 12, and then there certainly were others among the 12, because it mentions the women and different things. So there was still a small group of people that pulled aside, and they had these relationships with, and they developed them, and they became really close, and so those are important. I think it's important for us to be careful who we let in that inner circle to speak into us.
So good.
Especially if you're a new believer, even to those of us that have been believing for years. If you get surrounded with the wrong kind of negative energy, negative Nancys and Debbie Downers and all that, it'll bring you down. I don't care how strong your faith is. That's why I know you probably
Or even people that condemn, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's just, you have to have people that are, and if you're rooted with people like that, you got to root them out. You just do. You're not going to run with the same crowd you did before the faith. I mean, you can try. Jesus certainly didn't run from sinners. He ran into sinners, but he held hold to the truth and told them the truth, and he loved people right where they were. I mean, he loved the woman in sin right where she was, or the Samaritan woman, or whoever it was. He loved them in the place they were, but he also told them truth at the same time.
Yep.
He didn't compromise truth. And so we got to be careful to surround ourselves with people that are going to speak positive things and not constantly speak negative things. And that's important, because we can all be guilty of being the negative ones ourselves if we're not careful.
Sure.
So that's a choice we make, and it's a choice definitely we need to make when we are, as mentors, mentoring someone new to the faith. It's a great answer. I just felt like I wanted to add to it.
That's
So.
awesome.
Yeah, and I think, for anyone out there who, you want your faith to be contagious. I know that sometimes after someone's made a decision to walk with Christ, leading them through that new normal is a little intimidating. for many reasons, maybe you feel like you don't know enough, or you feel like you can't handle their problems and helping them walk through that. But, ultimately remember that you're just a few steps ahead of them, and you're just trying to help them walk that same path, and you're not alone. Find several people to support this person, and you don't have to carry the weight of all of their burdens. But when I think of it, I think more of, someone walking along a path, and you just come up and you link arms with them, and you just walk alongside each other, and you say, all right, well, we're going this way. Okay, we've hit a bump in the road. That's all right. We're going to keep going. So, don't be intimidated by that. I think all of us, sitting here as a pastor panel, we've probably done that with several people, but I know many Christians are intimidated to really be the church. They feel ill-equipped, but that's not how Jesus designed it at all. He calls ill-equipped people all the time and equips them, like 100% of the time. Like us, yes. Like, if you don't know this already, pastors are real people, and we screw up and we do things wrong all the time. So, I would really encourage you, if you want to be someone who is contagious in your faith, just go for it and love people genuinely and authentically. And don't be afraid to reach out to pastors or people who have poured into you. For sure.
Absolutely. I appreciate all y'all being here today. It's been amazing.
It was fun.
It's been good. Yeah. Well, we'll have to have this panel back up very, very soon.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. And if you, as we're wrapping up here, I'm going to ask Pastor Shane to pray us out in just a second. But if you want to drop in the comments ways that you are finding to creatively be contagious, or ways that you're finding to live a new normal, or ways that you hope to live a new normal after this is over, we would love to hear those from you in the comments, and I'm sure everybody else would too.
all right. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Join us next week. Let's pray. God, we love you so much. And thank you for technology. Thank you that we're able to still stay in touch with our friends all throughout the internet, Lord, that are listening right now, and that we can still speak about what you spoke about, and study your word together, and come together on Sundays and even throughout the week with different events like this. And Lord, I pray that our faith will become contagious in a good way. Lord God, that we would love the world so much that they would have to ask questions, and that they would lean in more. Even the skeptic, Lord, for the skeptics that are out there, Lord, I pray that love would basically overcome their skepticism, and that they would pursue you at the end of the day. Lord God, at the end of this coronavirus season, Lord, as they're searching and trying to make heads or tails of it, Lord, I pray that you will be the one that is standing there waiting with open arms. And I pray that they would see that and recognize that and run to you. Lord, be with us all. Help us keep us all safe. Help us to be wise and do the things that we need to do so that we can get through this season. But Lord, I pray we come out the other side as better people, as more disciplined followers, and those that would just be contagious. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 You guys be blessed.